Peter, as well as all your stuff for Marvel, you've also written several Star Trek novels. Why are you so attracted to writing in shared worlds?
Well, it's entertaining in and of itself. One of the things that I like particularly about the Marvel universe is that when I was growing up, these were the characters that I grew up with, these were the characters that I enjoyed, and more than that, when you're talking about a shared universe, you're talking about a mythos. To contribute to some aspect of a mythos is to contribute to something that's more important than yourself. And I think that is a tremendous kick. When I come up with something about the Hulk, and I say, when I came up and I said, okay, this is the aspect of the Hulk's personality. He's a multiple personality disorder, and this, that, and the other thing. And then I see the Marvel Universe Handbook or the Marvel Universe trading cards, and it takes the stuff that I totally fabricated and puts it in print elsewhere and gives it the illusion of total fact. I think that is such a thrill to be able to make that contribution to that universe, and thinking that somewhere out there are kids who are reading this stuff and basically taking it just as much on faith as I did when I was their age. I would read this stuff and I wouldn't be thinking, oh, somebody came up with this. No, I would be thinking, wow, so that's something about the Hulk I didn't know. It's a fact.
Right.
And it heightens the unreality, as it were.
You must have a lot less input within the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, absolutely. With the Star Trek universe, when I was writing the original characters, there's the kick of working with the original characters. When I'm working with the next generation characters, there's a lot of stuff to be developed with them. There's a lot of trying to seek some of the humanity in the characters that sometimes they just don't have to seem to have time for in the 43 minutes that they use to produce an episode. The problem with the Star Trek universe is not that I'm making any kind of permanent contribution necessarily, so much as having fun working within something that is so long-lived and so many people get enjoyment out of. And when I do something like an Imzadi, and I come up with all this stuff about Betazoid culture and Betazoid history and the dynamics of a wedding and what Imzadi really means and all this kind of thing, unless they choose to address it in the television show and say something other than what I've put, then to every single person who reads it, that's it. It's finished. They read it here, and unless they say so otherwise on the TV show, this is the fact. So it happens there, but to a lesser degree.
The first Star Trek books were by respected SF writer James Blish. He novelized the original TV episodes. A lot of SF readers were surprised that Blish would work on a market-driven Hollywood project. He needed money for hospital bills. Today, 2 Star Trek novels hit the stands every month, so Pocket Books relies on regulars like Michael Jan Friedman, Diane Duane, Lawrence Yep, and J.M. Dillard, whose name graces 6 Star Trek books with more on the way. Jean, how difficult is it to write a Star Trek novel?
In some ways, it's a free ride for a writer. It's not as much of a great test of skill because you can write a Star Trek novel, and the only thing you have to do to make the reader instantly interested in your character is to say, Kirk, I mean, that's all you have to do. Just mention the character's name. If Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are in it, or if, Picard and Riker, Data, etc. are in it, they're going to be interested. So, it is kind of a free ride in that sense. But the problem, the downside, are the restrictions. You're not free to, I'm not free to kill off Kirk. I'm not free to, do certain things to the characters that would be very interesting dramatically. And that is the downside to it.
But guys, in the best fiction, characters have to be in jeopardy. How can you create any suspense or mystery when everyone knows Kirk and Spock and the rest will survive for the next sequel?
But the major character in Star Trek is the Enterprise. And so we constantly place the Enterprise in jeopardy.
Yeah. In fact, we gutted her in Prime Directive.
That's right. Well, and we did get a letter from a fan who said he read the blurb on the back of the book and he realized that we had destroyed the ship. And he said he couldn't believe that we would do that. and he couldn't bring himself to read the book.
Yep.
So we wrote him a nice letter and said, please read beyond page 35. He did. And he wrote back and says, oh, he was so relieved that we hadn't done anything, but it upset him greatly to think that we could do this. And how could we treat heroes like that?
Part of it, too, is the predictability. The Prime Directive begins with, in the very opening chapter, there's a prologue to it where we refer to the destruction of the Enterprise and refer to Captain Kirk as one of the most reviled starship captains in history at this particular time.
He's an outcast.
And the first chapter clearly establishes that Kirk is nobody wants to deal with Kirk because he is a criminal, he's an outlaw, and he's a murderer.
And a butcher of history.
And a butcher. And,
yes.
and everybody, everybody who reads that knows, well, that can't possibly be the situation.
But it's fun to start
that way. So you know how the story is going to end. The story is going to end with the complete redemption of the crew and the reconstruction of the ship. But then the fun in Prime Directive is, well, how did the situation occur? And that's about a quarter of the book is flashback.
And that's getting to the solution of that mystery again, which is the getting there is the fun, and finding out how we rescue Kirk and his reputation.
Well, Star Trek fans are noted for their rabid devotion to those characters, and no writer wants to perish under a pile of hate mail. Does that affect the way you approach your Star Trek novels?
There's a real responsibility writing with characters because it's passionate, the involvement with them, and you don't have a chance. Very few writers have created characters that have that kind of following. Therefore, there's a great responsibility.
The ability as a writer to start off in chapter 1 with a character who, like Kirk, who carries so much emotional weight with the readership, that's something you can hope for. Like if I write a novel by myself, or if we write a novel, well, with Galen's Sword, it's taken sort of 3 novels to get up to the point where we have this huge emotional investment in Galen as a hero who is risking everything to save the world.
And it's much harder to write Galen because now we have to remember what we've done in our shared universe. And our list is growing, and it's difficult because we're the ones who are supposed to know. And with Star Trek, we know more about that than we know about Galen.
So far.
Actually, we're becoming experts in Galen as well. Right. But also, when you start off, you can concentrate on the story because you don't have to tell the readership what the character is.
In the first paragraph, you just have to say, Captain Kirk sat on his chair and looked around, and you're into the story, and you know the situation.
Right. So everything carries added resonance, and you can means that you have all of that, the time that you would devote to developing his world or his character, you can now spend on developing the story. So in fact, it becomes a plum assignment.
Another author who has written for Star Trek is Harlan Ellison. His teleplay, City on the Edge of Forever, for the original series, was one of the finest Enterprise episodes. Harlan also created one of the very first and most influential shared world projects in SF, Medea, short for My Idea. So naturally, I called Harlan to hear his ideas on shared worlds.
I absolutely despise and abhor, so that there's no mistake about it, these shared world books that are done. Even when they're at their best with, say, the wild cards or occasionally moments in the Heroes in Hell sequences, the 2 that come to mind quickly. There are others that have some bright moments in them. I think they are anti-art. I think they are anti-talent. I think writers who get involved in them for whatever capricious reasons serve the devil.
What's happening, Nancy? We haven't talked about Medea or Murasaki. I've got great gobs of Harlan you haven't seen. Okay, we'll do more on the shared worlds next week. Medea and Murasaki next week, right here. Next week on Second Nature, the quark. Is it the basic subatomic building block of the nucleus, or is it that cheesy spread you find in the dairy section? Plus the problems of sex in space. NASA considers the Velcro condom.
Coming up on TVO.